The Laura Ingraham Show.
So that's what the Equal Protection Clause and the First Amendment, free association, so that means, just so you all understand, anyone anywhere has a right under our Constitution, even though they're not American citizens, to be here. Wow, that's interesting. What does having a country mean? But you know what's amazing about this? I was thinking about this. Whoa, there's almost, we're going to play, we got lots of lies of the day. A lot of the things that are being said, a lot of the things being said remind me of hands up, don't shoot. The things that were said around the Ferguson implosion. And then hands up, don't shoot, just that became the calling card for the left. And so then that spread across all the other protests. Well, the police brutality, whether it was a Freddie Gray or whether it was any of the other unfortunate incidents, all of it. So hands up, don't shoot turned out to be a lie, turned out to be totally false. But boy, that drove a lot of the left-wing activists to go out, and they had their signage, and they had their. And let me tell you something I don't like. Well, that's probably a long list, but I don't like using the American flag as a. I've never liked it as headgear. I don't like it on motorcycle riders who use it as a bandana. I've never liked that. So forgive me if I'm not completely wowed by the hijab as an American flag on the posters that they think is going to work for them. I don't think most Americans like that. And it's not disrespect of Islam. It's, in my view, it's disrespect of the flag. I don't like that. I get if you want to have a couple stars, but that just looks like the whole American flag around someone's head. I don't like that. I'll never forget the night of 9/11. My radio show at that time was on from 7 until 10 at night. And my old producer, Lee Habib, and everyone's in a state of shock in Washington on September 11th. So this was the evening. We didn't know how many people were dead. All these people, thousands of people were missing. There are posters all up over New York. The still smoldering at the Pentagon. It had been a long day. So this was at about 11 o'clock at night. And we were sitting outside on P Street in Washington. And everything was everyone was numb. We were sitting outside eating. This was so late, 11. And someone was walking down the street in front of us because we were sitting outside. It was surreal because it was a beautiful night, but it was a horrific night. Someone was walking down the sidewalk and they were dragging an American flag behind them. It might have been someone who was trying to do something positive, but it was like a reflexive thing with me. I got up off my seat and I hurtled over. Drew can believe I did this. I'll get Lee on the show and he'll confirm that I did this. There was like a railing, but separating the tables from the sidewalk. It was like I was Carl Lewis. I leaped over that railing and I grabbed that flag out of that guy's hand. I pulled it out of his hand and I said, hey, we got thousands of Americans dead. We got our country under attack. Don't drag the flag on the floor, on the ground. Oh my God, he pulled that flag up real fast. Lee's like, Laura, get back here. No, it was reflexive. Given what people have sacrificed for, it's a symbol. Yes, it is a symbol. It doesn't mean it's not our actual independence, but it is symbolic. Respect for the flag. I don't like that hijab flag. And it's not because it's disrespect for, you wear it as a motorcyclist and you use it I never like that. I don't like it on the back of your pants. I don't like that. A patch for a military person, an actual American flag patch worn respectfully over your chest. That's something different. Or in your arm. I don't like it used as something else. I'm sorry. I just had to get that. I had to get that off my chest. But so the hands up, don't shoot that set the nation on fire in all of these protests against the police. And by the way, that Black Lives Matter still use. They still use hands up, don't shoot. After the temporary ban on people who come into the country from certain nations that was laid out by Trump on Friday night, okay? the lies that kept coming all weekend long from congressmen. And they know it's not true. And that brings us to the lie of the day. A whopping 109 people were detained. Most of them already processed out. This is not a Muslim ban. 87% of Muslims around the globe are not affected by this. 87%. But what does it do to their case to say it's a Muslim ban? I will say they're jeopardizing the country's security. They're jeopardizing other nations' understanding of what we're trying to do for our country. They're jeopardizing it by perpetuating a falsehood. So 87% of the 1.6 billion Muslims are not affected by this ban. And it's a temporary withholding of entrance. Do you all believe that individuals around the world have a universal right to enter our country? 855-40-LAURA. Because that's what the left is saying. Remember what Hillary said in that Goldman Sachs speech. Open borders, open markets. The belief in open borders, open markets. She didn't think that was going to be reported on. But I never forgot that. Open borders, open markets. There is a significant strain of thought within primarily the Democrat Party. And that strain of thought is that the borders need to be far more porous. Yes, far more porous than they are for the free flow of commerce and the free flow of peoples. Because those people believe that in a globalized society, the old nation state should fall away. That global structures and global governance and global understanding must supplant national sovereignty, issues of national security even. Yes, I mean that when I say that. It helps their case to resist Trump, to say this is a Muslim ban when it is not. Trump pointed out in a tweet, and he's absolutely right, I believe about 40 countries are predominantly Muslim countries are not affected by this ban. 7 are. 87%, let me repeat, of the world's Muslims are not affected by this temporary withholding of entrance into our country. The president has plenary power to control immigration in the United States of this variety if he believes it is in the national interest to do so. The hyperbole from the likes of Mayor de Blasio, Bill de Blasio, remember, who is so radical and out of touch with most Americans that he believed it was his right to supersede U.S. immigration law by offering IDs to people in New York who then can get benefits, citywide benefits, local benefits. A lot of people were concerned that they could get voting benefits, voting rights. Why? It's very confusing to people. You get this ID looks very official. People were getting Obamacare, food stamps, all these things that they promised us they wouldn't get. De Blasio tried to make it easier with this card. To the extent that he has succeeded, he thinks that's a success. But remember, we were promised that was never going to happen with illegal immigrants. They were here just to work. They're not getting benefits. They're here just to work. Then why do they need all these IDs? They're here just to work. Why do they need the ID? Oh, so that allows them to work. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and George W. Bush all exercised their plenary power on the issue of immigration. Entry, exit from the United States. Bill de Blasio, one of many of the far-left Democrats, in a total, and let me say, feigned freakout.
look at the point in this executive order on religion. Should be chilling to anyone in America who cares about religious liberty. There is an exception made, a potential for the exception made for anyone who is not Muslim. There are no exceptions allowed for someone who is Muslim.
I actually had a chance to talk to Secretary Tillerson on Saturday night. I can't say what we talked about, but I had a chance to chat with him, talk with the Vice President, spoke with Paul Ryan, Justice Kennedy, spoke with him. It was a big weekend. Chief Judge Justice Roberts, talked to him. I had a very brief encounter with Jeb Bush, but I can't say anything more about that, but it lasted about 5 seconds. Now ask me how upset I am about that. So the United States now has a temporary pause on immigration from certain countries. And the Democrats are using this, as we would have predicted, to launch the resist Trump on everything totally across the board. So resist Trump on every issue, on every point, except maybe infrastructure, because they always like to spend money. Do you think that this is within Trump's authority? Well, it is, but that's not an important question. But do you think the rollout of this allowed the left to galvanize? Do you think the surprise of all of this was the way to go on a Friday? 855-40-LAURA. And the Supreme Court nominee will be announced tomorrow at 8 p.m. Trump is going, I'm hoping it's Judge Pryor, but I think it's Judge Hardiman. That's my sense. But it could be Judge Gorsuch. It's going to be one of the three. Otherwise, I'm really out of the loop. I think it's going to be one of the three. I hope it's Pryor. He's the absolute best. Hardiman second. Gorsuch not in my top 10. Sorry, not in my top 10. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad person, but we got to go for the best right now. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. We'll get to your calls. We have a president who's actually going to put American safety first. What a shock. Discover amazing products that inspire happiness and personal growth with FabFitFun. You get to indulge in premium fashion, beauty, skincare, wellness, and lifestyle products from top brands like Moroccan Hair Oil, Tarte Cosmetics, Oster Blondie, Perlice, The Honest Company, Zumba, Bar 3, and more. Join celebrity fans like Real Housewives, Lauren Conrad, Tori Spelling, Kim Zolciak, and more by signing up with a FabFitFun box. With FabFitFun, you receive a seasonal box of incredible full-size products 4 times a year. Each FabFitFun box costs $49.99, but always contain over $200 worth of products. That's an unbelievable value. Become a member today and get 20% off your first box when you use the code LAURA at fabfitfun.com. That's $10 off, making your first box just $39.99 for over $200 worth of full-size products. The boxes sell out faster and faster each season, so don't wait. Get your FabFitFun box today. That was just classic. You see, this is what happens. You have these hosts of these shows who don't know the law. And so they think because some federal judge goes off half-cocked and issues a stay against the executive order, then because a judge, an Obama judge, issued the order, that's a win on the merits. Here's what I'll inform all the TV hosts out there who were wrong for the last year about Trump, year plus about Trump. A stay is called injunctive relief. It is not a ruling on the merits. And injunctive relief is temporary. So the court action was a temporary stay, meaning pause on the immigration order. Does not mean that they had it, that the judge herself had it right. But just because a judge says something, when they get the ruling their way, they think, oh well, we're right on this. It's a Muslim ban. Oh my goodness! And in the green card deal, I mean that had to be clarified, and it was clarified. Andy McCarthy's going to stop by. He wrote a great piece at NRO about this and a lot more. Go to lifezet.com. Trump's wall rhetoric is now turning into a reality. How is that happening? Go to lifezet.com.
That's undoubtedly true. In fact, when the 9/11 Commission looked at the attacks from 2001 going backwards to the one in my case, what they found was completely ineffective immigration controls including in connection with the Blind Sheikh, in connection with the guys who actually did the bombing of the Trade Center. We had guys who were driving cabs in Brooklyn who were here on the agricultural exclusion or exception.
Oh, God.
Across the board, immigration was, if not the main problem, it was close to the main problem.
So the lies that have been perpetuated over the weekend in attacking this executive order come from many sources, whether it was Congressman Ellison or Chuck Schumer or Tim Kaine or Chris Murphy we'll play some of this in a bit, but of all of the most egregious things that have been said about this, what is among the worst in your mind? That the president doesn't have the authority to do this?
I don't think they very effectively have attacked that, because the provision that we're talking about, Laura, is so straightforward and so sweeping. I mean, it basically says the president has the authority to keep out any alien or class of aliens if he thinks their admission would be detrimental to the United States. So it's hard for them to come around, especially since Obama used it and Carter used it. It's hard for them to come around and say that Trump didn't have the authority to do this. So I think what they've instead done is gone to the usual agitprop of, America's war against Islam, which hopefully after 25 years of trying to clarify this, fewer and fewer people are buying, which is, I think, a large part of the reason why Trump won. They know that we're not at war with all Muslims, but at the same time, they also understand that we are in a civilizational struggle and a war with jihadists and the people who back them, which are Sharia supremacists. By definition, they're Muslims. So we have to have a way to get at them and keep them out of our country without overly antagonizing our friends in the Islamic community. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but we ought to be able to walk and chew gum at this point.
Well, the argument that it is a, quote, Muslim ban is very emotional, and it sounds to a lot of people, again, who aren't really all that familiar with either the Constitution or precedent on this, is that, wow, gosh, can America really do that? And the fact of the matter is, the only time that immigration, country of origin or immigration of that sort is mentioned by the Constitution is where, Andrew?
Where?
In the Constitution. In other words, people are saying that the president can't exclude people on the basis of religious background or religious affiliation.
No, I think that's all preposterous. There's nothing in the Constitution.
Thank you.
That prevents the president from reacting to any threat against the United States. And what's I've been tearing my hair out, what little I have of it left, over the last couple of years, when this refugee stuff has come up, where they say we can't have a religious test. First of all, a religious test is written into the refugee law. What makes you a refugee is the legitimate fear of persecution. And as we know throughout history, and as our law explicitly recognizes, religion is a common cause of persecution. So written into the statute is the fact that you have to evaluate the claim by people that they are likely to suffer religious persecution. It's written right into our law. So to say that you can't have a religious test is preposterous. The one place the Constitution talks about a religious test is in the qualification for public office, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about in terms of the national security of the United States against alien threats.
Yeah, well, so the idea that the president, if he wanted to do that, couldn't do that under the Constitution or statutory law is false.
Correct.
That's shocking to people, I think. Again, this doesn't go right at the issue that we've talked about before, Andy, of a population, unfortunately, of people in the media and others, frankly, who are at these protests who actually don't know anything about the Constitution. They don't know anything about it, so they just spout off.
Yeah.
And then they think, oh, well, Chuck Todd won't know the difference either, so let's make this a big story.
And the worst part of it, the cherry on top, is that I think a lot of the media does know what the truth is, but they obfuscate it. I mean, there's perfectly smart, well-informed people in the media who know a lot of the stuff that they're spouting is five-alarm nonsense, and it's their job to clarify it. But they're playing for the other team, so that's what we're dealing with.
So the concern from some who don't necessarily oppose what the president did on Friday is that there were only 7 countries in the temporary ban on the visas coming into the country, people with visas coming into the country. What about that? Why was it that Saudi Arabia wasn't on the list, or Pakistan, or Afghanistan?
Well, let me tell you what I think they're doing and why. I think, first of all, this policy that was put in place in the executive order is a way station to what's supposed to be a more refined policy coming, 4 or 5 months down the road. So this is a temporary stop, but it's supposed to be a temporary measure that heightens our security. I think the Trump people are sensitive to the fact that the president is doing a lot of executive orders, and that Obama, for 8 years, used executive orders unlawfully to usurp the power of Congress and to do all kinds of things that you're not supposed to do with executive orders. So what Trump has been doing is, I think, rooting his executive orders in provisions of statutory law so that no one can say he's usurping Congress's power, he's acting lawfully. And the law in this instance that was relevant that he relied on is this law that identified 7 Muslim-majority countries as to which or where we simply can't vet. I mean, you can't call up Sudan and say to them, we have this guy who wants to come into the United States. What's his background? That capacity doesn't exist in these 7 countries. So I don't think this is where the policy ultimately ends up, but I think it was important to them to start with something that was rooted in Congress's own law. And in fact, this is 7 countries that were identified by Obama, and this is a statute that was signed in 2015.
Andy McCarthy with us here on the Laura Ingraham Show. What is your sense on the federal court stay on this order? Obviously, the appellate court will have a quick review of it. The briefing, I believe, has already been done. Where does this go?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be very consequential, Laura, because the controversy we're dealing with in terms of people who are actually affected by it, there may have been 350,000 people traveling over the weekend. There's only about 375 people who even come within the ambit of this. And the subset of that number of people who are actually in some way done harm is probably closer to, about 150. Mm-hmm. So that is being worked out, I think, and probably will be worked out among the immigration authorities and the people, and that's going to be whittled down over the next few days. So I think there'll be fewer and fewer people who actually have cognizable claims. And it's important for people to understand that what the court is reviewing here, for the most part, I mean, the ACLU is going to ask them for the moon, but really what the courts are looking at is whether the people who were harmed by this over the weekend because they didn't have enough notice that it was going to happen have been done some kind of a legally cognizable harm. In terms of Trump's authority to do this, I think the courts won't review it because really, Congress has given them the authority. And as you know, probably better than I do, there's a lot of law we've gotten from the Supreme Court and other federal courts over the years that teaches that border control and the security of the United States against foreign threats is really a matter for the political branches, and by and large, the courts are supposed to stay out of it, not least because they're, the question whether they really have jurisdiction over places where the threat is coming from is dubious at best.
Well, Tim Kaine was on with Chuck Todd over the weekend, and of the many things that he said that were outrageous or just downright false or defamatory, I'll have you react to one of them.
It's a religious test, as you pointed out. It imposes a different burden on Muslims than others. And the irony is not lost on me that it was issued the same day as the White House issued their Holocaust Remembrance Day proclamation that, unlike any previous administration, removed all reference to Jews. So you put a religious test on Muslims and you try to scrub reference to Jews in the Holocaust Remembrance. This was horribly, horribly mishandled.
So now the Trump administration is both anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim, Andy. That's what Tim Kaine was getting at there.
Yeah, well, that's why the Democrats are now a coastal elite party that, every time someone like Tim Kaine speaks, they marginalize themselves and declown themselves even more. I mean, that's just like flat out stupid. And I think, again, a large part of the reason that we have President Trump is that most Americans, especially those outside the D.C. New York corridor and away from the West Coast, most Americans understand that we have a profound threat from radical Islam, that it's not all Muslims, but it's not an insignificant number of Muslims, and that we have to work to separate our enemies from our friends. And they're not, they understand that this is never going to look pretty or perfect, and they get the religious implications of it, but at the same time, they are going to, I think, gravitate toward people who are trying to improve American national security and clearly doing it within what the law allows.
What do you think about the rollout of this? Could this have been produced better on a Friday?
Yeah, I think it could have. On the other hand, even though I've said there are implementation problems, from Trump's perspective, I think he's probably thinking, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And if I had said, the order goes into effect in 30 days, there would have been all kinds of court challenges and the like. At least now he's able to litigate it from the standpoint of the new vetting is in place. And maybe there were, some unfortunate hiccups at the beginning, but at least it's in place. Whereas if he had done it a different way, maybe there would have been all kinds of court interference.
Andy, your piece was great, and you really, in a very short order, turned that around to explain to a lot of people why the hysteria is really unfounded, and the legality being questioned was also erroneous. Thank you so much, Andy. Come back soon, okay?
Yeah, my pleasure, Laura. Thank
All right,
you.
Trump's exclusion of aliens from specific countries is legal. Andy McCarthy's piece, both on Facebook and LauraIngraham.com. We'll close this hour out. Boy, we're jam-packed today. We'll get through it together. And remember, LifeZet. Make sure to download that app, along with Laura 365 memberships, flying. I know you guys love listening to the show anytime you want, anywhere you are. And you can listen to it commercial-free. So go to LauraIngraham.com. And always, Laura 365. Don't go away. All right, could it be that conservatives are finally flushing the transgender bathroom issue? Go to lifeset.com. And the specs for a border wall. How will it be built? What will it look like? This is the worst kind of left-wing smear. And it's the same thing that we saw during the campaign in a variety of forms. That didn't work. The more you say you're racist, you're anti-immigrant, you're xenophobic, you're protectionist, you're whatever, pick your poison. In this case, the more you just throw that out there, the less effective that attack becomes. Because the idea that Donald Trump, one of his top aides in the White House, is an Orthodox Jew, and his daughter converted to Judaism, is somehow an anti-Semite, is just preposterous. But this is all they have, is the smear game.
The chief political advisor in the White House, Steve Bannon, who is connected with a news organization that traffics in white supremacy and anti-Semitism, and they put out a Holocaust statement that omits any mention of Jews. Remember, earlier administrations have done these statements. And so the first thing you do is you pull up to see what earlier statements have said. And the earlier statements, President Obama, President Bush, always talk about the Holocaust in connection with the slaughter of Jews. The final solution was about the slaughter of Jews. We have to remember this. This is what Holocaust denial is.
So the answer to the temporary ban from admitting people from 7 countries. By the way, 87% of Muslims are still allowed to apply to come into the United States. 87% are not affected. Tim Kaine goes on Meet the Press and says, oh, yeah, and by the way, they're not just anti-Muslim, they're anti-Semitic. This is where the Democrats are today. This is why they fail every time. Donald Trump is doing what, in his estimation, is the right thing to do for the safety and security of the American people. When the 9/11 Commission concluded that we needed a fingerprint database and it was called the entry-exit system for individuals from certain countries, that was in the 9/11 report. Was that anti-Muslim? A database. You got to track these people. Well, that's what they said. Well, of course, that implementation fell far short of what it was supposed to be. But the biometric system to protect Americans that was advocated for, concluded to be the best thing by a bipartisan group on the 9/11 Commission. Was that part of the big conspiracy, the Bannon conspiracy? I watched that Tim Kaine on Meet the Press, and I thought to myself, poor Virginia. Poor Virginia. I mean, all the great people of the Commonwealth of Virginia, this can't be the best that you have to represent your state. If you want to quibble with the countries that Trump listed in the executive order, if you want to, fine, do that. But the idea that this is anti-Muslim, when the overwhelming majority of Muslims are not affected by this, and by the way, only 109 people were slowed down in their entry to the United States or processed because of this executive order. But it's all about organization. This is all about power and politics. It has very little to do with a practical understanding of either national security or the plenary powers of the President of the United States. 855-40-LAURA. Let's go to Steve in Wyoming. Oh, of course, other presidents use their plenary power in ways that affected the screening of individuals from coming into the country and delayed entry of people who can come into the country for specific reasons. Steve, go ahead.
Yes, I was watching a video this morning of Bill Clinton. He was, in 1995, he was proposing more border control back then, and even got, I guess, standing ovation from everybody in Congress. So for them to sit there and call Trump a racist, I think is pathetic.
Well, we have the audio, actually. This is Bill Clinton in 1995, I believe. Let's listen.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop
it. So what's the problem? Now, Hillary was tweeting over the weekend, joining the protesters in tweet form. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, went over to the Logan Airport. Pocahontas spoke. I can't torture my... We are against torture here on the Laura Ingraham Show, by the way. We are against torture, so we are not going to play Ruth Buzzy Warren talking about the so-called Muslim ban, which didn't exist. Doesn't exist. But they were all out, everybody trying to... Oh, we got to play the Schumer. Before we do anything, we got to play Chuck Schumer, who... Well, he wanted you to think he was crying over this executive order.
This executive order was mean-spirited and un-American. It was implemented in a way that created chaos and confusion across the country, and it will only serve to embolden and inspire those around the globe who will do us harm.
Now, if you're crying, if you're choking up, how many of you do this? See, well, you have to go back to acting lessons. You want to learn how to act? You have to learn how to really be believable. He needs to take a little more seriously this idea of acting, the outrage, acting. You don't do that. But it made all the newscasts, didn't it? Chuck Schumer made all the newscasts. Well, great minds think alike.
I noticed Chuck Schumer yesterday with fake tears. I'm going to ask him who is his acting coach, because I know him very well.
I haven't even heard this.
I don't see him as a crier. If he is, he's a different man. There's about a 5% chance that it was real, but I think they were fake tears.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, that cracks me up. I did not even know he said that. We just played that soundbite, and God's honest truth, I did not know he said that. That is hilarious. Let's go to Nick in L.A., Los Angeles. Oh, the protests in L.A. at LAX. Because, Nick, it really makes sense. If you want to make your voice heard, it makes sense to inconvenience Americans who are trying to travel. That's really nice. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, the protesters, I never believe those protesters even ever care about America. But on the Bannon thing, I just want to keep repeating, because they keep repeating this lie that he's a racist. And these liberals can never give an example of his racism. The only thing I ever get from them is the Breitbart article calling Bill Kristol a renegade Jew. This is their anti-Semitism. Written by a Jew defending Israel against Iran getting nuked. That was what the whole article is about. This is the only thing they have on Breitbart. Yet they keep repeating Breitbart, alt-right, racist. And I can't stand it.
Well, that's what they do. That's what Alinsky told them to do. Isolate, demonize, repeat. Isolate, demonize, repeat, and distract. You demonize an individual, you isolate an individual or a movement or a person, or in this case a website, and then just keep repeating it. And there are a lot of cerebrally challenged individuals out there who just sit there and nod and go, oh, yeah, man, that's awful. Oh, it's horrible. They carry around their insipid signs. By the way, there's a big photo on the above the fold at the Wall Street Journal. Huge photo of, you know what I noticed about this in the signage? We got to get a copy of this photo if we can. And then it's really interesting how all the signage, the script is all in the same print. It says handwritten signs. It's all the same. They're like, this is all organic because some fool sent out a tweet saying, show up, man, at JFK Airport, and we're all going to. Well, those signs are all handed out. This is AstroTurf deal. This is AstroTurf protest. Look at this, Drew. Look, I want Drew to look at this because otherwise people think I'm crazy, okay? Look at this. Look at this sign. Refugees welcome. Resist Trump. Now, what do all these signs have in common? These are handwritten signs with big Sharpie magic markers. It's all the same script. There's one American flag and about 500 people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's
all
no
those are done
that.
by one person. Someone was really busy on Friday night.
That's right, because this is awful.
By the way, Rex Tillerson was in a great mood. For all the people saying, oh, the State Department's really upset, he was in a great mood on Saturday night. He was laughing. He was having a great time.
I mean, he didn't want the old people in there anyway. He wants to change it all up.
And by the way,
That's the
I
whole
did
point.
see Chuck Schumer Saturday night. I didn't talk to him, but he was sitting about 15 yards from me. And no tears. He was laughing. A lot of jokes being told. It's alfalfa dinner. It's off the record, so I can't tell you the jokes. Some of them are hilarious. Ivanka and Jared were there. But I didn't see tears. No tears. But, no, you have to just pull that. Of the fake crying, that's like Joe Biden when he turns around.
Right.
Remember when he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom? And I have never seen a man whip a handkerchief out of a pocket faster than he did. That thing was so planned. That was like quick draw McGraw. Like, he got the old pistols and the old K. Corral already. Quick draws, like Clint Eastwood. Yeah, he whipped that hanky out and turned around. You know why? Because if people actually looked at him, they'd know he's faking.
Yeah, you're right. And they acted like he didn't know it was coming.
Please.
You know what I mean? It was so staged.
This is bad acting.
It is.
Forget bad constitutional law. This is just bad acting. 855-40-LAURA. But this is part of the deal. This is all emotional. Has nothing to do with substance. Has nothing to do with security. This is emotional manipulation of the American public. 855-40-LAURA. We're going to take a break, get to all your calls. The fake tears, the crocodile tears When we come back, Jonathan Turley, he chimes in. He's no conservative, but he chimes in on the legality of this executive order, all coming up. Supreme Court decision will be tomorrow. An entirely new thing for the left to protest. Resist Trump. The left is saying resist him on everything. We want constant protests. A real way to win the American people over is to inconvenience their travel. Now, Drew, you were at the Birmingham airport yesterday. What did you see
I was.
there?
They actually blocked, where you're departing and arrival, so I had to go underneath and go into the arrival part instead of departing, so they weren't letting anyone departing. I mean, this was just all kinds of you could just tell the type of people. They didn't have jobs. They were
professional protesting
poorly
class.
Dressed, just, I hate to say it, but basically slobs. And then they had the same dumb protesting signs. They didn't even know what they were protesting.
No,
some of the signs don't even say what is actually happening and what's going on, as you point out with the Muslim man, So it's ridiculous.
But
they don't even know what
they
they're
were at
protesting.
Hartford. My friend of mine was at Bradley Airport in Hartford. She was sending me photos. I tweeted it out yesterday.
Thank God they were not at DCA. I was very surprised, but I guess they were in front of the White House, so that makes sense.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. How is it legal to have a protest inside an airport? They get on you if you even take a photo near TSA, right?
Yep.
You try to take a photo near those screener things. What are those called? The screener.
Metal detector screening.
Yeah, whatever they're called.
Security
those
detectors. Yes.
Things that make you look naked.
Trump did say that they're going to be doing cell phones now. They're checking cell phones more thoroughly. I'm not sure. They don't know the details yet, but they are going to be scanning for cell phones more thoroughly.
Good.
Yep.
You know something? We have been inconvenienced in our travel since September 11th. Well, shortly after that. We've been inconvenienced. We've had to go through rigmarole at the airport. We've had our war heroes subjected to humiliating searches. We've had elderly in wheelchairs lifted up and embarrassed because of the ridiculous searches. We've had women with baby carriages being humiliated. And now we're supposed to lose sleep because 109 people from 7 different countries, they had to be processed a little bit more aggressively yesterday. Who cares? Where's the concern about the average American's inconvenience? Don't go away. He's just gotten started. He's dealing with a media. They are so dishonest, predictable, either uninformed or purposely so. And they will allow Democrats to come on their shows almost unquestioned. Very little pushback when Democrats will come on and say things that are verifiably untrue about the administration. State them as fact. They're not facts. They're, in fact, prevarications, to put it kindly. And so you don't really blame Trump saying that the media is like just the loyal opposition. Not everybody, but too many people. And so I don't think that most in the Republican, party are in all that much disagreement with what Trump is saying about that. Maybe they'll question the rollout of this temporary ban on refugees and temporary ban on people coming from 7 countries. But the idea that somehow the media are honest brokers just calling balls and strikes here, of course not. And one of the great things that Trump required in one of the executive orders last week is more transparency in reporting the crime committed by illegal immigrants. You've heard me complain about this for so many years because we're actually trying to report on this, bring it to you. I'm learning from so many of you out there across the country. You hear us in all 50 states about the crime committed in your communities by individuals who you have a pretty healthy suspicion are in the country illegally. Yet you can't get your reporters, your local media to report on it, or sometimes even the police, let alone collaborate with federal authorities to get these people out of the country. Do their time here if necessary, then get them out of the country. You feel like, wait a second, aren't they supposed to be on our side? Yet they're hiding this information. I'm telling you, it is most egregious in places like California, in Oregon, in Washington State, in New York. Remember, in Sweden, you can't identify the immigration status. Swedish law says you cannot identify the immigration status or ethnicity of anyone accused of committing a crime. That's the law in Sweden. They're going to change that, I'm sure. But right now, you can't. It's against the law. Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us. Congressman Andy Biggs represents Arizona's 5th Congressional District. And we're going to talk to him about what happened over the weekend, the hysteria on the left over this ban. Corker, McCain, and Graham are very upset. Those guys want us to fight all these wars overseas, yet we're supposed to let anyone into this country that wants to come in. Okay, well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. That's why none of them are president. Joining us now, Congressman Biggs. Congressman, great to talk to you. How are you, my friend?
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. So you guys have been at the forefront of this immigration fight, going back to the push for the, what is it, SB, what was it called?
SB 1070.
1070. I can't believe I didn't remember. 1070, and then the Supreme Court went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Also, of course, Sheriff Arpaio, the left put in a huge amount of money to defeat him in recent election. He was defeated. But you guys bear the brunt of a lot of the illegal immigration, and the public is there's some split in the public in Arizona about it, but it seems to me that the focus on decreasing crime and the security risk in your state has in general won out.
Yeah, we've had in the last couple of years 10,000 criminal illegal aliens, and then another within that group about 4,500 to 5,000 violent criminal illegal aliens let back out in the streets of Maricopa County because of the catch and release policy of Barack Obama's administration. So we've really got to put an end to that. That's for sure.
Well, the president demanded in this executive action last week that cities and states compile immigration status numbers, providing them to the federal government of their prisons, which was overlooked as well. So it's very difficult to get those numbers. In California, there was a study that came out some years back, and I believe the number was over 20% of the California prison population was an illegal immigrant population, which doesn't surprise me at all, given the huge spike in the number of gang members, illegal immigrant gang members in California.
Well, Arizona has been ahead of that curve. We've been doing that for years, but we know one thing: about 15% of our prison population are illegal aliens in the country, and of that, they're overrepresented in the violent crimes such as rape, homicide, aggravated assault. That's where they're overrepresented in our prison population in Arizona. So Arizona's been on it because we've been dealing with this thing for multiple generations, but that's why we've been there. But I think it's a great order, and the American people need to know what's taking place at the border.
Now, the story from Arizona from a few years back of that 21-year-old convenience store worker, Grant Ronenbeck, who was, by all accounts, an amazing young man. He was shot in the face by an illegal alien who was upset. I guess he had to pay for his cigarettes. And that story, again, like so many of the stories that we've brought to our listeners over the years, that doesn't really get mentioned by many politicians. And this guy, Apolinar Altamirano, had been in the country illegally since he was a mere dreamer at age 14.
Yeah, and he had been convicted of several crimes, and he should have been deported again, but he was released. He had been convicted. He was released, and so that's why I've introduced the Grant's Law bill, is because the federal government has an obligation for our safety, and here's in this instance, and in this particular type of instance, they're not taking them. They'll put a hold on these folks. They come out of court, they come out of prison, and they get a notice saying, hey, show back up here in 6 months, and then we're going to have a deportation hearing. That's unrealistic, because now they have 6 months. They're never coming back anyway for that hearing, and they're released back into our streets, and we know that they're violent criminals. They have a conviction. So the federal government has just been absolutely asleep at the wheel, allowing Americans to be put in harm's way.
Well, it's purposeful.
And,
this is purposeful. I'm sorry, but this is purposeful because they made a calculation that it was going to be better for them, constituent-wise. I mean, it would be better for the Democrat Party to keep bringing these people into the country, allowing them to come in, and frankly, not doing anything that is going to further publicize the crime committed by illegal immigrants. There's a reason why Obama never really focused on this. He would say stuff like, well, we got to get rid of the bad guys, sure, but all these other kids are here, and they're here, and they're American and everything except a piece of paper, he would say. Everything except a piece of paper. And meanwhile, Grant Ronnebeck is dead. His father appeared, I know, in the Oval Office last week when Trump signed that executive order. And we had not had a president previously, Congressman Biggs, who spoke to the victims of crime and spoke for them. The people who have no voices any longer spoke for them and their families until Trump came along. Had no one speaking for them.
Absolutely, and I am so grateful for President Trump. He's been vigorous. He's been out there. People are mad at him, but he's doing exactly what he said he would do. He is an energetic, vigorous personality, and he promised us he would do things on refugee. He promised he would do things on the border. He promised us that he would do things for the victims of criminally violent, illegal aliens. That is what he is doing, and I think that there's more that applaud him than the loud folks that are screaming right now.
What about the Republicans who are people like your Senator Jeff Flake, your Senator John McCain? Both of them have been, in my view, usually terrible on the issue of immigration, and there's no secret that neither of them really likes Trump. I had half a mind to move to Arizona and run against Flake. That's how enraged I am at what Flake has said over the years. But why do the Arizona people keep sending these people back to power? This is what I don't understand. How are they representing what's best for the Arizona people if they're not clear on the fact that our sovereignty and our security and, frankly, yes, our economy, because these jobs should be done by Americans, they don't speak for them. I don't, for the life of me, I don't understand why Arizona votes for these people. I just don't get it.
Well, Sheriff Joe is a prime example. This guy was on the front lines. He was enforcing the law, doing a great job. And George Soros came in with $3 million against Joe Arpaio, and was able to take out Sheriff Joe this past time. So Arizonans, by and large, even today, support the remnant of SB 1070, probably around 65%. But I will tell you that there is a coalescence around the criminally violent illegal alien going on, even in our state, where the liberal columnists who usually take me to task are supporting this grants law bill, because even they get it, that if nothing else, on illegal immigration, we should be deporting these people who are a hazard to us, that are causing crimes, killing people and maiming them. We should get them out of here. And
Mexico doesn't want them back. Mexico doesn't want them back. Honduras doesn't want them back. Guatemala doesn't want them back. Salvador don't. They don't want them back.
They got to take them back. I mean,
or what? What do we do?
Well, I think Trump's on the right. President Trump's on the right track, where he's talking about, we're going to start eliminating your participation in visas to come here at ambassador levels and your delegations. We're going to start there, and it's been done twice in history, and both times those states took their criminally violent illegals back, and that's not an unreasonable thing to say. Look, these are your people. They're your citizens. We're sending your citizens back to you, just as we have to take ours back. But that's the leverage that you put, is that you can't come in. We're not going to let your people come in with visas if you're not going to take back these people.
Good. I mean, they take care of their country. We take care of our country. And they have to make their own decisions. We have to make our own decisions. If you had to rate the level of panic, 1 being the least panicked, 10 being the most panicked of Democrats right now, how would you rate it?
They're about a 15, I think, on the scale. They're really panicked. You know, I mean, here's a guy coming in and he's actually living up and trying to keep every promise that he made. And the majority of Americans support that. The coastal cities and coastal places are the only places in the country that really don't fall in line with this. I think Chicago being an anomaly besides. But otherwise, Americans support what Donald Trump is doing. And I think that they just are apoplectic. I think the media is apoplectic and are confused and in consternation about the whole thing. So,
well, Congressman, we're delighted you're doing what you're doing. Yeah, we're delighted you're doing what you're doing. Grant Ronebeck, his life snuffed out by an illegal immigrant who never should have been in this country. And the blood of these victims is on the hands of every politician who looked the other way when the cries of these family members were unheeded. And I applaud you for everything that you're doing. Thank you so much. Congressman Andy Biggs doing what he should be doing for the people of his state. God bless you. We'll take a break. Don't go away.